Some people, even the strongest of swimmers, have said it felt like somebody was pulling them under the water when they found themselves in Lake Lanier. And there are plenty who aren't even from the area who would tell you not to get in the water of Lake Lanier, mostly due to the rising popularity of its haunting past and its haunting present. If this nearly 58 square mile reservoir is cursed, then there's numerous reasons that you can point to as to why. In 1912, Oscarville was home to around 1,100 blacks, most of them, if not all of them, being freed men and women who settled here after slavery ended. They made their living by working in the fields or doing odd jobs for white residents in surrounding neighborhoods, and were successful in building churches, schools, and small businesses in their town. With the Atlanta race riots happening in 1906, there was still fear in the town that something could happen at any time. The community members were regrettably right. On September 5th, 1912, 22-year-old white woman Ellen Grice said that two men tried to come after her. But before they were successful, her mother ran them off. The Forsyth County Sheriff pinned 5 black men for this, which caused a stir amongst the black communities in the area. A vocal and local preacher named Grant Smith tried to appeal to the sheriff for the men, citing little evidence and that there was a chance that one of the men was actually in a relationship with Grice. This angered the local white community, so they came to the courthouse for Grant Smith, with horsewhips and other various things. And on those steps is where Grant Smith almost passed away. Tony Howell, one of the men, was accused and convicted. Shortly after this, false rumors began to spread that blacks were planning to do something to a nearby town. So white residents in the areas were loading up on arms and patrolling the towns. On September 12, 1912, 16-year-old Ernest Knox was accused of assaulting 18-year-old May Crow. She was found barely alive in the nearby Big Creek community. Searchers allegedly found a small pocket mirror belonging to Ernest Knox. They found him at home, threatened to hang him, and coerced him to confess. Knox and 4 other men, presumed to be his accomplices, were taken to a jail in the Atlanta area. A group of over 2,000 whites came to the jail and overtook it, hanging one of those men, Rob Edwards, from a telephone pole in the town square. Both Knox and another teenager named Oscar Daniel were found guilty. They were sentenced to hanging without ever having a fair trial, a sentence that was also against the law in the state at this time. And the Night Riders, an openly supremacist group, was formed after these events, with their main goal being to run every black person out of Forsyth County and beyond. Oscarville became the subject of their attention. Over 98% of its black residents were run out of town or slaughtered for not leaving. Black property deeds were literally given to white neighbors without a bill of sale or transfer. The Night Riders and their allies drove every black person out of Oscarville. They stole their land and left it a ghost town. The land would eventually be sold to the government, and in the 1950s, the Lake Lanier project was underway. The entirety of Oscarville and other small towns would be completely flooded underwater, and the reservoir would be named after Sidney Lanier, a Confederate. In total, over 50,000 acres of farmland would be washed away, 250 families displaced, and over 20 cemeteries left under the water. And to this day, it seems that what was left behind still has a story to tell. Hundreds and hundreds of people have passed away in this lake, with well over 200 of them happening after 1994. What that number doesn't include are also the amount of accidents that happen, both vehicular and boating in nature. On top of that, it's said that this lake is haunted. One of the legends is that the spirits under the water would try to pull you under. Roads, artifacts, and foundations have been found underneath the water, which also leads people to believe that there are souls tied to them forever. People also claim to have felt inanimate arms and legs underneath the murky water. And the most popular myth is the Lady of the Lake. The story goes that a woman and her friend were heading to Dawsonville in 1958. That car went off the bridge and into Lake Lanier. The woman who was driving the car was wearing a blue dress. And it wasn't until 18 months later when they eventually found that woman. She was allegedly missing 2 toes on her left foot and she had no hands. And people to this day still have stories about seeing this woman in blue on the bridge and throughout the lake. The deep-seated resentment for black communities started well before September 5th or September 12th, 1912. The Reconstruction era was very hard on black communities. These events just gave people a reason to do what they already wanted to do to black communities. Places like nearby Kalijah or Benson under Lake Martin in Alabama were never given the chance to survive. And that goes for Oscarville up under Lake Lanier as well. And the next time you go to Lake Lanier, just remember how it got there.